Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Flow University. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the program. Essentially, the social societal mechanism that essentially everyone is been placed in from birth, and they simply go with. This aspect of reality has been constructed by humans, but more so it's a machine in order to keep people in check. But more so, it is an underlying aspect of the human being that seeks to drive out and create the best makers of society. But more so, its central purpose and drive is to pull all of the resources towards the top of society. Why? Because if all the resources piled up towards the top of society, then it's easier to dictate, manage, and the dish in check. So essentially, I want you guys to imagine a table. And imagine that the table is placed at the top of society. And the construct of society is designed so that all the resources pull towards the top. And the people that sit at the top then take those resources and dish it to representatives, community leaders that have gone to the top of society. And then those people trickle down those resources to the rest of everyone else. And so essentially what happens is that the entire baseline of society is for one to gain skills and attributes that help for them to place resources or things within that pile that goes up towards the top of society. So there's two types of, so I would say the entire basis of human society is split into two major factions. The first faction is those that are the representatives and essentially goes on behalf of what I would call the workers or the people that have the labor skills, and they go and they get the resources so those people can create things and do things with it. And then the other aspect of society are the people that makes things and create things. And so those two aspects of society, it starts from birth. And so one is either born within the aspects of society where they're a worker and they essentially have to create things or manage things, or you're born into the other aspects of society where essentially you become a representative for those people. And so if one doesn't understand this and they venture out into the world, what will happen is that they'll run into roadblocks, and those roadblocks they run into is because they don't possess or they're not from one of those two factions. Now, a lot of people will say this is the beginning of communism. It is the beginning of communism. The human being is hardwired to be set on communism. Why? Because as I've explained in previous episodes, we are hardwired to hoard things and to gather things and to bring things within. But essentially this drives into chaos, because if there's too many people and there's too many factions, it'll lead to infighting because one faction might not be able to get enough resources. So now they have to go in, they have to fight other factions for their resources. And so I explained in another episode, this is what leads to military complexes. And this is what the military complex actually is. Because essentially you need a military for defense, but the defense sometimes leads to offense, because if someone's taking too much of your resources, then you need to go out and retrieve those resources as well. So this is kind of the creation of the military complex, because there's different aspects of human society and people are always going after things. Now there's a civil way that people do this, and people do this through protesting, they do this through policy, and they do this through diplomacy in terms of how to get pieces of the pie. But essentially a lot of times it leads to all-out chaos, and you see this in the lower bottom aspect of society where human beings essentially take things by force, and there's things that happen. And this is why a lot of individuals, when they don't understand this, they'll lead to them essentially engaging in certain liberties, and they'll take liberty upon themselves because they believe that they have achieved a certain level of understanding. But a lot of times these individuals, they operate as individuals, they don't operate as large groups. And this is what you see in American society. This is a lot of what you see with a lot of the violence that goes on. A lot of humans, they don't reach the stage of creating gangs, movements, or parties, or even communities. A lot of them, they'll simply reach the stage of just an individual, like an individual vigilante. And so that's what will happen, and they will achieve that level of understanding, and they'll take it upon themselves. And this is really the need for patience and the need for one to sit back and really continue to learn, grow, and progress. Because they'll realize that they're not alone, that there's others going on this journey, and they'll figure out where they are within the bigger picture of things. And so it'll be easier for you to find your community and find your tribe. You all stay blessed.